How you doing there, folks? Lame Schmali coming to you from FEMA Region number 3. And I think I got a little more food for prophetic thought for you here today. But before I get to the crux of the biscuit of this here video, I gotta tell you a little story I heard from none other than my old stage partner, Hyman Gestalt. There we are, look at that. Isn't that something? That's from many, many years ago, my brothers and sisters. Well, anyway, he calls me on the phone, and he says, hello there, Leben Schmull, and I say, hello, Hyman Gestalt. Then he tells me, I'm going to email you a picture I took before the 4th of July parade I went to the other day. I said, okay. So I get the pics, and here it is. Now, let me explain a bit. As you can see, the faces in the photo have been blurred, as I have not received permission from these folks to post their likeness. But the three in the front there, they are not the object of the story, of which I was told by my friend Hyman Gestalt. The object of the story was this gentleman here. Well, Hyman was curious as to who this man was supposed to be, being that this was in fact a parade in which the theme was the 4th of July. Well, after Hyman asked, who are you supposed to be? The man answered, Pontius Pilate. To which Hyman responded, oh, okay, and prompted him to immediately wonder if perhaps he could have possibly, or was going to possibly, witness the only 4th of July parade in American history to feature Pontius Pilate. Can you imagine? Hey, Mommy, look, there's George Washington. Hey, son, look over there. There's Grandpa marching with his VFW. And look, it's Pontius Pilate. Well, friends, I'm not certain why Elohim would have Pontius Pilate show up in the middle of a 4th of July parade, but one thing's clear, his ways are not ours. And now on to the crux of the biscuit. And as it was told to us by the Apostle Paul in letter number 1 to the Corinthian saints, I will not report unto you anything that will not edify, exhort, and comfort. Be assured of that. I actually got a few headlines to show you in this here video. Oh no, Leben, no. Leben's going back to the headlines. He said he was only going to talk about the scriptures. Oh, what's he going to do? Oh no, Leben, don't say it. Well, I'm saying it. Calm down, settle down. Friends, allow me to impart this unto you, something that many of you have heard me impart before in previous videos. Yeshua himself, the creator of all things, the Aleph and the Tau of all prophecy, told us that his reign will not come any faster because we're intently watching. The watching he told us to do was strictly for him, his coming in the clouds for us and for our own souls, that we not fall into temptation while we occupy in our watching for him. Nothing about signs. Please keep in mind, he also said only a wicked and adulterous generation thrives on signs. And when there are signs to be seen, we are too. However, let me add this with regard to things in the news that rightly interest those of us who are truly looking up. There is a very big difference between news that is truly relevant with regard to Scripture and reporting things that have no bearing on Yeshua's coming for his own before the time of Jacob's trouble. Keep in mind as well that headlines must not only be relevant, they must be confirmed as true. When the headlines are relevant and true, I'll report them, but I will not report gossip or conjecture. Prophecy is not prophecy if it does not edify, exhort, and comfort. All three. Stories about prefabricated pagan temples and Illuminati eyes and pyramids are what Elohim called them in the book of Jeremiah. Scarecrows in cucumber fields. Now let me be completely open with all of you here, my friends. The closest I ever came to reporting something that could possibly be called conjecture, something that I was not completely sure would happen exactly as one may think I was reporting it, was when I posted a video surmising that it would not be very long before the buffoon Erdogan would be gone. That is no longer the leader of Turkey.
Turkey.
I challenge anyone to watch that video. Here's the thumbnail for that. And tell me if the information in it does not give us pause when pondering the longevity of this buffoon and how much longer he will be the president of his country. Moving on. I believe that it is safe to say that most folks in the know who this gentleman is. But for those who do not, this is Bibi, a.k.a. Benjamin Netanyahu, Prime Minister of the nation of Israel, the land of Elohim. The land where the Elohim of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob has put his mighty name, and where things as we know them will end. People, many of you may not know this, but the man you see here on the screen has one of the highest, or perhaps the highest IQ of any current leader that exists in this world today. In other words, intellectually, he's a genius. However, with regard to the scriptures handed down from the one that he says is his Elohim, I refer you all to Daniel chapter 5 verse 27 and this word right here. Tekel. One of the words that was written on the wall during Belshazzar's party. Belshazzar, however you want to say it. Do you know what that word means, Mr. Prime Minister? It means this. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. Oh, Laban, I can hear some of you out there now. Laban, you might be crossing the line here, saying this about Mr. Netanyahu. Who are you to make such a judgment on this man, the man whom Elohim has chosen to be the leader of his land? Well, let me tell you why I have no qualms in putting that scripture under a picture of this man. Either this man is truly ignorant of the scriptures and only uses them when it is politically expedient for him to do so, or even worse, he does know them, but does not take them seriously, which would mean that this man has no fear of the Elohim he claims to believe in. You got a reason for saying this, Laban? You gonna back this up? Yes, I am. And in order to do so, I'm going straight to the scriptures again. Just like I came across Daniel 5:27, I came across another one that put me right in mind of a question this man asked while addressing his nation with regard to a tragedy that occurred just last week, June 30th, I believe it was. When he asked this particular question, I thought immediately of a particular scripture. A scripture from the book that was quoted from more than any other by the Creator of all things when he walked as a man on the land that Mr. Netanyahu has been given the privilege to lead during the time of this last generation. From the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 2, verse 25. Read it with me, my friends. This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole of the Shamayim, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you. Now that's Elohim talking, my friends, and he's talking about the nation of Israel. And the fact that no nation on the face of the earth will be able to even stand that nation. They will fear and dread it. Why, this scripture, Laban, You and perhaps the Prime Minister might ask. Well, now take a look at this. From the last day of June 2016, Palestinian man stabs and kills 13-year-old Israeli girl asleep in her West Bank home. Murdered in her bed by garbage. Now listen to the Prime Minister's remarks regarding it. I'll play the entire statement, then we'll break it down a bit. Listen closely.
A terrorist sneaked into the bedroom of a 13-year-old girl, Hallel Yafa Ariel. He murdered young Hallel in cold blood. The picture of her blood-stained room is almost too hard to see. There's a teddy bear still on her bed, a red beanbag chair, some pictures on the wall, shoes tightly packed in a bin next to her bunk bed. Why would any person do this? You don't murder a sleeping child for peace. You don't slit a little girl's throat to protest a policy you don't like. You do this because you've been brainwashed. You've been brainwashed by a warped ideology that teaches you that this child isn't human. We will not let barbarism defeat humanity. There is no middle ground between beautiful Hallel and our unspeakably evil murderer. Today, each of us is going to fight back. I ask you to walk into your child's bedroom before they go to sleep. I ask you to hug them. I ask you to kiss them. Teach them that the values that Hallel's murderer most detested, freedom, diversity, pluralism, will never die. We'll always hold them dear. Tell them that we will never let fear, evil, and terror triumph. That we will always stand for justice. And this is how we will fight back. We fight back first by fighting back, fighting the terrorists, fighting their backers, fighting those who incite for such murder, whether in Hebron or in Orlando or in Berlin or in Ankara or in Belgium, anywhere. We fight back by making sure that our collective moral compass doesn't waver even a millimeter. Today we will cherish Hallel's memory. We will defend and honor her dignity by redoubling our efforts around the world to defeat the scourge of radical Islamist terror. May Hallel's memory forever be a blessing.
People, if any of you out there have a growing relationship with the Elohim who this man says is his Elohim, if any of you are able to rightly divide his living word, you had better have been cringing on practically every word this man spoke, or should I say didn't speak, with regard to the tragedy of this murdered girl. Not once did this man even mention the name of Elohim. And what was that question that he asked? The question that prompted me to put up Deuteronomy 2:25 up there? There is the question you asked. Why would any person do this? Why, Bibi? Why, you ask ignorantly? I'll tell you why. Because the Elohim of hosts said, "This day I will begin to put the dread and fear of you upon the nations under the whole of the Shamaim, who shall hear the report of you, and shall tremble and be in anguish because of you." That's why a person would do that, and he told us this over 1,500 years before his lamb walked this earth as a man. It was not Muhammad, it was not Hitler or Stalin who put this fear and dread of you into the nations of the world. It was Elohim. So it will be him who you will be fighting against. And I am not surprised by this at all, because within this speech you did not once as the leader of the nation of Israel, seek the counsel of your Elohim. You did not once ask for his mercy or his guidance, and worst of all, you did not even cry out to him in prayer. Nothing. No acknowledgement that he even existed in this situation. So yes, Teagle, if you, Mr. Genius, Mr. IQ, if you cannot acknowledge the power and the glory of the Elohim that put you in that seat, then here is the answer to your question. You have been weighed in the balances and found wanting. People, I do not believe for 1 second that this man is ignorant of the scriptures. No way. No way. You know why I say that? Because you cannot be told to heed something that you are not aware of. You cannot be told to obey something when you have no idea what it is you are to obey. Friends, I read a story that was posted on the 6th of July that made the hairs stand straight up on the back of my neck. And when I fully realized that I was actually reading what I was reading, I fell to my knees and I praised the name of the Elohim that man Netanyahu would not even acknowledge, because I knew that when I showed you all, you would certainly be edified, exhorted, and comforted beyond measure. Ha ha! The rabbis of Israel are crying out to this man. They're crying this: come to your senses and heed the instructions of the Torah, and stop the further shedding of innocent blood, which continues unabated. And here's what I read that literally caused me to fall onto my knees in praise of Elohim. The rabbis declared that they are crying out and beseeching the Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, government ministers and members of the Knesset, to recognize that this is a time of trouble for Yaakov. Oh my goodness, do you see this? It goes on to say, the Torah's prediction of the grievous consequences of transferring Israeli territory to its enemies is being actualized before our very eyes. This was printed on July the 6th of 2016. This is how close we are, my friends, to being gathered unto our Yeshua in the clouds, and we will be with him forever. But look again at this statement here. Read this right here one more time. And then we're going to go back to something I showed you earlier, and it's going to blow your mind. Read this with me again. The Torah's prediction of the grievous consequences of transferring Israeli territory to its enemies is being actualized before our very eyes. Let us go back to a scripture I showed you before. This one. Now, of course, we who are familiar with the word of Elohim know that this rebuke was not given to a king or to a leader of Israel. We know that it was the kingdom of Babylon that we are reading about in Daniel chapter 5. But know this: the Almighty of hosts can surely use what occurred here to open the eyes of any king and any leader of any nation on this earth today. And in light of this man's blatant neglect to even cry out to Elohim in prayer, this shoe certainly fits. And I think it is no coincidence whatsoever that the very next verse of Scripture Could very well be the other shoe. What are you talking about, Laban? Well, what is everyone talking about, Laban? Could it be this two-state solution? And what actually is this abomination, this two-state solution? It is the dividing of the land of Elohim. Now here we are, looky there. It is Daniel 5:27 we're looking at there. I wonder if the Prime Minister knows what 528 is. Let's have a look. Interesting to say the very least, don't you think? Now, once again, my friends, we know that we're not dealing with ancient Babylon here. But is it not interesting as well how the Medes and the Persians managed to take Babylon unawares? How did the enemy get in? What was Babylon doing? They was partying. They was having a grand old time, perhaps reminiscent of how the nation of Israel's been celebrating lately. Look at that. 200,000 take part in this abomination. And Netanyahu asks, how can these things happen? I wonder if the Prime Minister happened to catch this headline. Times of Israel from July the 4th. God must not be our top priority. How's that for a relevant and true headline? So how did the ancient Medes and Persians take Babylon? Well, according to Herodotus, it went something like this. Cyrus then dug a trench, and diverted the flow of the Euphrates River into the new channel which led to an existing swamp. The level of the river then dropped to such a level that it became like a stream. His army was then able to take the city by marching through the shallow waters. The Babylonians at the time were celebrating intensely at a feast to one of their gods, and they were taken totally by surprise. I wonder if they was also feeling peaceful and secure when this sudden destruction came upon them. But look at that first sentence there. Cyrus then dug a trench. So how did the enemy get in? They dug their way in. Sound familiar?